Hey everybody, welcome to the Fresh Focus Sports Podcast. I am your host, Thanasis, Petrakis, and this is episode 1. This is our first episode given a shot during the quarantine here, stuck in my little apartment in LA, and we've been putting this off. We're putting this podcast together just to bring value to everyone that's a filmmaker out there, that's a producer, that's an athlete. Fresh Focus Sports, just a little background on us. We came together. It was a group of filmmakers who were friends that were just looking for more opportunities. We all worked for pretty big leagues. Myself, I worked for the NBA for a lot of years, 13 years. And we would use Fresh Focus Sports as just an outlet to create opportunities that we weren't getting for these big companies. You know, I started out in live TV, so I wasn't working in the documentary field for the first 7-8 years of my career. Fresh Focus Sports during that time was always an outlet to do projects, do documentary style stuff, go film something. I wasn't getting the chance to film. I wasn't getting the chance to edit stories. I used Fresh Focus Sports with people I knew and just relationships I made to tell people stories on my own and build those skills. And then when the opportunity later came in my career, boom, it was perfect. I had already built those skills on projects that I was doing to help others, which was like friends, so it was like a win-win. In 2003, I interned with NBA TV, and they were documenting the Rucker Park season up there. They would do live games. There was a tournament called Entertainers Basketball Classic, which Greg Marius founded. Rest in peace, Greg. He passed away a couple of years ago with a battle with cancer. But Greg was an innovator in the game, a pioneer in the game, and his tournament was legendary. And in 2003, NBA TV was a live TV channel based in Secaucus, New Jersey, Harlem right across the water, and they would go over there and they would do live games. And that summer was crazy. Like, you know, you would have everyone from Beyonce, P. Diddy, Jay-Z, Fat Joe on the entertainers side show up, from LeBron, Carmelo in the stands not playing, but you would have on the court, you know, Jamal Crawford, Stephon Marbury, Kenyon Martin, Richard Jefferson, like big time players. Like, it was legit, and you would see it every night, and you didn't know who was going to show up. Was it going to be Sean Marion? Was it going to be Steven Jackson? It was just kind of a crazy atmosphere. And 5-6 years later, the person we're going to talk to, Edgar Burgos, he had the idea to document that epic season of 2003 where Fat Joe and Jay-Z's teams were about to meet, but New York City blacked out. All right, everybody, welcome to the first Fresh Focus podcast. We are in the middle of the quarantine, or hopefully the end of this quarantine, but we are somewhere in this quarantine, and we are luckily enough to have our first guest, who is Edgar Burgos, the executive producer of our first documentary, The Blackout, one we did back in 2009 that focuses on the legendary street ball season between Fat Joe and Jay-Z. Edgar, welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Thanasis, what's going on, man? How you feel?
What's good, bro? Nothing, man. Just we've been putting this off for a while, procrastinating. So right now, it's very fitting to have Edgar on our show as the first one, because when I first came into the industry in 2003 as an intern with NBA TV, Edgar was my big bad producer that I looked forward to as a mentor. And one of the first projects I ever worked on, man, which is crazy, is I was an intern for that season where NBA TV covered the legendary Rucker Park, the EBC tournament, and Edgar was a producer for the show that NBA TV was doing. And some years later, Edgar had the idea to do a documentary on this legendary season. So, Edgar, how'd that come about?
Pretty much, well, first off, I can't believe 2003, that's time flies. But it came about that season because we were always there every single day. And obviously, I grew up with Rucker Park, and, you know, I've always been associated, obviously, you know, me working with the Knicks. And I had a show called Summer Ball where we would go around all of New York City. In 2006, we go around all of New York City, and we will showcase all of New York City basketball. In 2003, that season, it was probably the best basketball season I've ever seen in my life. And it ended, the way it ended was like, this great season happened this whole summer. Every day was popping. You never know who you would see at Rucker Park. And then all of a sudden, the blackout in New York City happened. And I remember, like, years later, me and you sat down and we were just chopping it up, and we was like, yo, we need to do a doc on this. And he was like, yo, let's do it, right? So then he was like, yo, but we need to talk to Greg. So Greg Marius, may rest in peace. We sat down with Greg and told him what our intentions was to tell the story. And then after that, me and you let's figure out a way where we could tell the story. And that's where it all began.
And the way I remember it is we were driving to my house in my little Mazda beat up car. We were going to my house in Little Falls, New Jersey, and you were selling me on the idea, and I didn't need much selling because I was eager. I was trying to get my teeth cut in the industry and learn as much as possible and do projects. And I remember you said the word Blackout. You were like, yeah, and we're going to call it the Blackout. And I was like, yo, I'm in, Ed. I'm in, bro. Whatever we got to do, let's make this happen. But we had no idea what we were doing, really, in terms of how much work was ahead of us, how many people we had to interview, chase down. You know, there's so many characters of this story. So, quick background. That season, both teams have 5 to 7 NBA players, some of them all-stars at the time. And the final game was going to even have even more crazy players. So the regulars that were there for Jay-Z was Lamar Odom, Sebastian Telfair, Jamal Crawford, Eddie Curry, Kenyon Martin, Smush Parker, John Strickland, the franchise, rest in peace, creator of the great lyric. My homie Strick told me finish breakfast. Yeah, Jamal Tinsley. And that was just the regulars. You know, the special guests that were going to be for the finals, we'll get to that later. And then Joe, on the other hand, he had Steph Marbury, Rafer Alston, a ridiculous backcourt. And then you add the street dudes in the backcourt, which was A. Butter and Kareem Reed. Then they had Zach Randolph, Al Harrington, Dante Jones. Just both teams just absolutely ridiculous. And Edgar, tell me, for people that haven't been there, what's Rucker like? What makes it such a cool vibe? Why do you get locked in as soon as you go there?
One, you know, Rucker Park has always been legendary because of some of the greatest players of all time have played there. Allen Iverson, you know, Dr. J back in the days. And it was something that it was for the community. And the community is, you know, they had something to look forward to and watch basketball once the NBA season was over. And, you know, they would just go there and they set the tone for everything that would happen in music, obviously sports, and it became like the it spot. Like, I need to be there. And for a period of time, like, as people like to call it, the golden era. So, you know, the 80s to, you know, definitely the 90s to probably 2000, up to 2004, 2005. It set the trend for everything basketball. And when I look at it now, it bridged music and basketball together like something I've never seen.
Yeah, I think Greg, rest in peace, as you mentioned, Greg passed away a couple years ago battling cancer, but Greg was such an innovator, and one thing that he saw right from the get is that music and basketball go hand in hand, and that the community, the culture, however you want to put it now, but back then he saw that in the 80s, and it was his music group that got involved in the street basketball. But when you look at it and you look back at that footage, you have, you know, Chris Brown, Alicia Keys, Beyonce, Fabulous, Jadakiss, you know, the list goes on and on and on. Now these people are A-listers. They were big time then, but they were showing up. It wasn't a big deal to see a lot of these people at the park. They were there all the time. Chris Brown was there before he was even famous. But let's talk about, so that's obviously why we wanted to tell this story, but it wasn't as easy as that. We didn't own any of the footage at the time. You know, we had to talk to, convince Greg to do this. We had to now track down all these people 5-6 years later and get interviews on all these people. And what was our budget, Ed?
We had $0. Our budget was to get to one place to the other, and that was it, and maybe eat something after we were done interviewing somebody.
Yeah, so like basically we were just doing it off the strength, right? Like we were just trying to tell a cool story, and hopefully down the road we were going to sell this to somebody, make money in the best case scenario, worst case scenario, get really good at documenting storytelling, but also make an awesome story. And a little of both happened. A little, when you look back at it.
For us, that benefited us was obviously the relationships that we had with all the basketball players and some of the celebrities, and obviously the advantage of me working at Madison Square Garden helped a lot too.
Yeah, so that's how this was able to get done with a zero budget. Basically, Edgar was a producer at NBA TV, but he was also the manager of the Knicks, and he had access to get us in with a camera. Every NBA team, when they practice on the road, they have to let in the visiting media for like the last 10, 15 minutes. It's just part of like the NBA's way to promote the game or find out stories. It's how everyone reads articles in the NBA. And what we used to do is Ed would call me. He'd be like, yo, Denver Nuggets are playing. That means Melo and Iverson are here. And I'd be like, all right, man, what time you think they're going to let us in at the media? He'll be like, get here at 10 o'clock. And we'd be waiting, me and my boy Rob Carbuch, and we'd be waiting to go inside. And we would just pop a question or two on the Blackout once these media scrums started. But if we had like a good relationship, and I say we, I mean Edgar, if he had like a good relationship, like Steven Jackson, Jamal Crawford, there was several, Al Harrington, we interviewed him during Summer League basketball. There was a lot of people that we pulled off to the side and actually got 10, 15 minutes with them. And that was big. And then the biggest interview tell me how we got Joe.
Joe, it was just we told him what we wanted to do, and obviously Joe's the type of person he would want us to get the story out, especially that they won the game, which made it even. He wanted to tell his stories. I remember telling Joe, like, Joe, hey, we're doing this documentary. Obviously, you're a major part of it. We want to sit down with you. And he was like, yo, meet me at the park. So. And what we thought, something that we said, yeah, we'll sit down, 15, 20 minutes. He wound up sitting down with us for like 45 minutes.
Yo, he sat down with us until the sun went down, basically.
Yeah.
The sun killed the end of the interview.
From day one, it was straight for the love. Like, I just want you guys to make it happen. Didn't ask for anything. And like, hey, I just want to see this come to fruition.
Yeah, he was definitely a huge supporter of it. And if you remember that night, that was the night that the Under Armour Elite 24 game was going on. So we interviewed Joe at Tri-State at Mousie's tournament on 145th Street in Harlem. And about an hour later, it was like Brandon Jennings, 10 blocks away, Lance Stevenson, all doing the Elite Under Armour game, the 24 game. That was 2008 we did that with Joe. And that interview with Joe, I remember I had just bought a camera because of that interview. I got a Canon XH-A1, and we rolled up on the park. I barely knew how to use that thing. And he sat on the bench, we framed it up, and we just started rolling. And I remember by the time it was done, I went back home and I had this tape in a little blue cassette. It was like a DV tape. And I told my roommates who I was living with, I was like, man, I could sell this tape to BET right now for $10,000. Because Joe was talking crazy, man. Because that was fresh off of it. Like, you fast forward now, they've mended things, time heals all wounds, right? But we're talking 4 years, 5 years at that point, because we're talking 2008 when we did the interview. The movie was done in 2009, but 2008 we did the interview.
What was crazy is that my only regret sometimes is that there was no Instagram back then.
Yeah.
And there was no, YouTube. There was YouTube, but YouTube wasn't what it is today. Facebook was, Facebook is Facebook.
Nah, it was MySpace. It was that. There was no Facebook.
So my thing is like, if we were in the Instagram era then, doing those interviews,
it would have been crazy. The build-up would have been crazy. Just documenting all the guys we got. I mean, when you look at it, for a real budget, for people that are trying to do budgets, like when you do one interview with one person, like say you're going to interview Jay-Z for the day, you're going to hire a camera crew. The camera guy is going to be $1,500, $2,000. Your audio guy is going to be $1,000 to $1,500. Your producer is going to be $500 to $1,000. So you're talking close to $5,000 every interview you're doing. And we probably had 20, and obviously we didn't pay any of that. But you're talking in that documentary, we probably interviewed 20 different people.
Yeah.
So you look at it like that, to do one interview costing you $5,000, or, you know, like it's crazy how many we did.
The best thing was like we were able to walk in some rooms that a lot of people not are able to walk into. I we've talked about this privately, but my favorite sit down was with Mike Kaiser, and Mike is somebody I grew up with. I'm not gonna say I'm close with Mike, but Mike has always showed me respect, and obviously he's a major big deal in the music industry, and he's close friends with Jay. And I remember telling you, yo, we got to get to Mike, and he was like, oh, how we gonna do that? So I was like, I'm gonna call him, and then I called Mike, and Mike was like, yo, come to my office. And we go to his office, but before we went to the office, our plan was, let's piss him off.
Your plan was?
Let's piss him off. We have to show him that the first draft of the Blackout was going to be so pro Joe, even though me and you knew the story. But we needed Jay's perspective, because our major goal was to get
Jay to sit
Joe
down,
and Jay as executive producers on this, so we could make this bigger than we thought it deserved to be. So we sat down. We go into Kaiser's office, and not only is Mike Kaiser there, but it's Kevin Lyles in there, and Steve Stout's in there, and another female was
heavy hitters.
Yeah, and we're like, and I always laugh at this because we've talked about this. You was a little nervous.
I was definitely nervous.
And I was like, yo, we're going to be all right. You're going to be all right. And then he played it. And the cool part was, to think about it now, is that he played it for everyone to watch.
Yep.
And nobody left the office.
People were locked in.
They were locked in. And Kaiser, after he finishes watching, he goes, hey, what the F is this? And he was pissed. And I was like, yo, we just need you to talk to Jay for us, and we need some of the guys, some of the guys who played on that team to tell their story, and which he helped, and obviously he got it to Jay, and we went back and forth with Jay. I remember seeing Jay at the Garden. I talked to him, and Jay was like, we're guilty by association. Like, at that time, he was still upset how the game ended, and he wasn't really rocking with Greg, and definitely wasn't rocking with Joe at the time.
Yeah, Jay wanted nothing to do with us.
Yeah, and he wanted nothing to do with us, but we also knew that he also had his own people's filming too, and he didn't even want to release it because they lost the game. So somebody had to know the story.
Yeah, so you're getting a little ahead of the game, but Jay's idea, in terms of the outcome of the game, but Jay's idea was to come in, stack his team, win the tournament, promote his sneaker, get out. And for Joe, that tournament was his life. That was his life. That's where he was every night. It didn't matter if he was the hottest rapper in the world. If he had a game, he was there. And Joe, I think Jeff, the reporter, puts it in the doc. He says Joe was like the Mark Cuban of streetball owners, and it's true.
The crazy part that summer, like, people don't even talk, like we talk about it, but Jay-Z was on the Rock the Mic tour, and he would fly in and pretty much change his schedule to make sure he's at the park. So it was going both ways. Joe was being there because for the love of the game and how much he wanted to beat Jay. And Jay was like, he showed his competitive side because it was like, yes,
he took it serious. He took it serious. Yeah, once he got involved, he took it serious, no doubt. Yeah, once he got involved, he took it serious. He was coming off a tour. It's different. It's like it was so common to see Joe up there that the park didn't change much when Joe walked in, which was a credit to Joe. That's like a compliment to Joe. He's so much a part of the fabric of the community up there that it don't change. On the other hand, when Jay walked in, you knew when Jay was there that night. There's more police, there's more security, there's more fans, there's a huge bus wrapped in an S. Carter sneaker, right? And going back to that meeting, I remember we cut it so pro Joe, and I truly didn't understand what you were trying to do in terms, I know we were trying to make him mad, but he got pissed. We kind of blew past that. He wasn't just he was like, you guys are effing liars, this and that. And we were like, no, we cut it like this because, we wanted to make Joe, And we're trying to give our side, but basically we were just trying to get Jay angry into an interview to sit down with us, be like, nah, that's not what happened. All we wanted was 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, and that's all we wanted. And the crazy part, I was obviously, we interviewed Jay during the season plenty of times, but we never got that one sit down that to this day, and it's 2020 that I feel that we deserve. And I think that he I think now with time heal all wounds, that's the story he would want to tell, and that's the story that people want to hear.
Yeah, and it's definitely time to do it again. I mean, we're 17 years away from when it happened, and we're 11 years away from when we filmed it, or 12 years. Our skills have gotten so much better in storytelling and filming and editing. Like, if we did it over again and got new footage and new updated interviews, there's still such a portion of hoops fans and hip-hop fans that have still never seen it.
And the good part is, like you said, like, there's a story to tell about how everything, the bridge between music and hip-hop.
Music, for sure.
Music, hip-hop, and sports.
Yeah.
And how it all started from that part, and how you look at, fast forward to 2020, where Dykeman is today.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, or even the NBA, man. You see it at All-Star Weekend. Like, Dame Lillard comes out and he's rapping. Like, you literally see it actually crossing over now. Like true hip-hop dudes are hoop fans, and, like, you see it reverse. Guys that could really...
Now, before it wasn't, people didn't understand it, but now it's, like, accepted.
Yeah. So talk to me about what happened with who were the special guests that were supposed to come for this final game. So both teams run through their whole season, right? For people that aren't familiar with it, beating everybody, undefeated, and they're supposed to meet in the championship game August 14th, 2003. And who's the special guests that are supposed to show up for each team?
So for Fat Joe's team, he had the special guests that it was going to be surprise appearances besides, the guys who already played the Marburys, the Rayful Alstons. He had Allen Iverson, who was going to come with Mike Bibby, and Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire.
Ridiculous. And you're talking Mike Bibby coming off the Western Conference Finals, Mike Bibby. Amari dunking everything.
Rookie of the year.
Yeah. Melo, yeah, right. He's going into his rookie year in Denver. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And then we fast forward to Shaq. We're talking to Jay-Z, and Jay-Z has, Shaq, Tracy McGrady, and LeBron James.
Yeah, which makes it a wrap. So the reason why that game doesn't go down is New York City blacks out for the first time in 30 years, shuts everything down. Cops have to leave to go take care of real business, so the game shuts down. And then you fast forward to Monday when they tried to redo it, and just watch the movie, I guess, to figure that one out, because there's a lot of complications. But the game never happens. That's why when he says that Jay and Joe years later mended it, time heals all wounds, they didn't talk for probably a good decade, 10 years after that. So this game meant that much, Joe put it in songs. Jay wasn't happy that they didn't win. It also is kind of the last golden era of Rucker, too. Like, it hurt a lot of people's feelings because the way the games ends, no one's happy with the decisions that are made.
The crazy part, I always say, like, to this day, the best part for us, like, it's such a story when you tell people that don't know. They're like, what do you mean the game never got rescheduled or played? So it becomes this folk story.
Yeah.
Like, who would have won if that game would have happened? And it would have been the most expensive street ball basketball game we've ever seen in our lifetime.
Yeah, the rumor is they were both putting up $250,000 each, and that was just between the two of them. Who knows what all the other side bets are on? But we have a part in the Blackout where we show that, where Jay's flipping off money, and Fab Five Freddy says that he was going to bet $250,000.
He was going to bet the park.
Yeah.
But I wish, like, there's a part of me that wish the game happened, and there's that other part that I'm glad it never did, because at the end of the day, there's no bragging rights. The bragging rights is for Joe was he won the game by forfeit, that Monday, but the game never happened. So if anybody won, we won because we got to tell the story.
Yeah.
But besides that, I'm glad that the game never happened.
Yeah, I mean,
Because that one person would have, it's like me beating you 20 years ago, and I'm like, I can always say I beat you.
Yeah.
But neither one can say that.
nah, it would have been amazing if it did happen, though. It would have been amazing if it did. But that it put a black eye on the tournament for sure that
Remember,
year.
I mean, we're talking about what? 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 people outside trying to walk into the park.
Yeah, and the thing is it's for people to understand. It wasn't the social media era where someone could just toss on their IG story, be like, "Look, Iverson's in the park, come down here." It was all rumors. You know, the rumor would spread throughout the city, and then you would see this line build up at 1, 2 in the afternoon, and they're not going to open the gates till 6 o'clock to let people in, and people are waiting out there because they heard a rumor that Amari's showing up, or Steve Francis is showing up, or whoever, KD is showing up. By KD it was actually KD's a good example of social media. KD sat in that park for an hour, and that's when it started to get packed. Whereas 5-6 years before that, it would be packed before because there would have been a rumor that he was showing up.
Kobe Bryant, another example.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a spur of the moment thing that he was like, yo, I wanted to play, and how the park all of a sudden just filled up when everyone heard like Kobe's going to show up.
Yeah, that's one of the best scenes in the Blackout too.
Yeah, one of the best sad parts about the whole Kobe thing is he only got to play a half.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was cooking that first half.
I think he had 23 in the first half, and then it shut down because of rain.
Yeah, so I wish, the fans never got the opportunity to see a whole full game of Kobe.
Just going back to the production part of this, when we took over and started to get media, a lot of this stuff was beta tapes. You remember we had to bring it to a dub house in New York, get those tapes digitized so we could actually even look at them. They were these big betas, like if you're under 30-something, you don't even know what they are, but they almost look like a big VHS, and we didn't even have the machine. It was too expensive. It was like $50,000 to look at tapes, so we would go get them digitized and figure out what we had on there. And I remember the first cut of the Blackout, like that's the first feature doc I ever cut, and I had it cut at 2 hours, the first one. I remember. It was super long, but I thought it was awesome because I was falling in love with it. But we ended up making it like 60 minutes just to show you as an editor you got to be selective because you can't have it that much. But Edgar, talk to me about what you're doing with your company, Heart to Guard Entertainment.
Right now, we're just pretty much, we're quarantined, but right now, we partnered with the Marius family, and we're trying to figure out a way where we could distribute old Rucker Park footage, which is a great thing, and also come up with some documentary ideas. Also, we curate events around New York City amongst, we've done celebrity basketball games. We've done a bunch of celebrity things called Friends That Feud. We've done I've done panel discussions where I bring athletes and people who work in the sports and entertainment world together. And we were doing a monthly thing that we started in November, and obviously the last one we had was March 14th. And we were going to do one every month throughout the basketball season, but obviously since we got quarantine, we can't do nothing until hopefully we can bring it down the road back up in September.
That's awesome, man. What if you had to, when you tell people about the Blackout, what's usually one of the best things that you remember about it from that summer, whether working or working on it? Like, what are some of the best stories you remember from it?
Just being around, man, the relationships, like I talked to Kareem Reed a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about, we talked about that season, and like to this day, it's like, those guys, and even you, obviously you're in LA, but when you walk around and you walk to these tournaments, the respect that they showed me, like, I can ask them, hey, I need a favor, and they're like,
yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, you got mayor status in New York street basketball.
Nah, I ain't gonna say that, but I'm gonna just say that we've always made them feel like even when we done summer ball and you worked on summer ball with me, like we made them the star. It wasn't about us.
Yeah.
And our thing was like we wanted to show them in a good light, and it wasn't like how it is now, crazy media, telling stories. Like we want to tell you a story, because everyone has a great story, and that's one thing that I think we've done well in our life talking basketball, and there's a respect there, and that's the one thing about that whole season and from seasons before dealing with basketball. It's like, we've been around a lot of great people.
Yeah.
And it's lasted to this day, and it's organically made friendships and great relationships.
What do you think about New York City street basketball now going forward?
We're in a weird space right now with street ball, especially with the adults. Obviously, back then, adult basketball was king. When we were shooting back then. Now it's all about high school.
Yeah.
And now, high school kids it's like the mini NBA, and most of these high school kids have major followings and stuff like that before they even become a star in college. And half of them don't even become stars in college.
Right.
So it's like, which is crazy. But how parents and the followers and the fans have bigged up these kids to things, something that I've never seen, that is still like, sometimes I'm just like, you go and you're like, some of these kids are not even that good. And it's just like,
yeah, the hype.
I don't want to say it bothers me, that's great that they're getting some notoriety, but compared to how me and you grew up and what we seen in 2008 and, and the 2003, 2002 and the years before, like most of you guys had to earn something.
Right.
These kids today, they go to the park first day and they call you, Pippy Pop or something like that. You got a name right off the bat. Some of these back then, it's like you had to earn a name.
Yeah.
And earn something, and that's the only thing that probably bothers me. So, but besides that, we're in it's a weird thing right now. Obviously, Dyckman Park is the new Rucker, and but that's because it's community based, and community makes Dyckman. How Rucker Park, people used to fly in or come from any borough just to make sure they made Rucker.
Yeah.
And people are starting to do that with Dyckman, but Dyckman's more community based, and Kenny Stevens has done a great job with that. But it's people, especially now, people miss basketball. Maybe sometimes, as part of me, I was actually talking to Kenny Stevens a week ago, and I was telling him about like maybe if there's no summer basketball this season, it actually might be a good thing. Let's look at positive, because it's going to show people that they missed the street ball game.
Yeah,
I think people in the next 2021 might come out and play and make it more exciting, make it exciting again.
Yeah, if this quarantine does let up, summer ball could be really hot this summer, man. There could be a lot of energy in those parks. It could be really dope.
And I hope that's what happens.
Yeah. That'd be great. All right, man. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for actually, real quick, if you had to leave advice to one person that's trying to start their doc, or a story, what would it be?
One, just go out and do it. Come up with a plan before. I'm not the most traditionalist person in the world. Thanasis knows this. Yeah. I'm one of those people that drives Thanasis crazy and be like, let's just go.
But I think
let's have a plan. Let's go.
I think to go out and do it is great advice, because that's how we got it done. If we didn't just go out and do it, no step would have came next. Like if we didn't just start doing interviews, doing Joe, or waiting for paperwork or whatever it was, like if we didn't just go do it, it would have never gotten done.
Yeah, and I think if you just go out and do it and obviously build those relationships more than anything, I think the sky's the limit. But, that's the advice I tell people now. They're like, hey, what advice? I'm like, hey, one, come up with a plan, and don't let anybody, steer your dream away. If you want to do something, and me, I'm the type of person that I just want to do it, and then I'll suffer the repercussions later. And me and you, we're like family. We've always battled that. Like, and you're like, Edgar, you got to come up with a plan. I'm like, yeah, but we got to do it. And my thing is like, I get frustrated when somebody tries to like tell you not to. Hey, let's take a deep breath. Because my thing is like, I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah.
and you know, and but my thing is like the point is definitely come up with a plan, and then do it.
All right, bro. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate you coming on, taking the time.
But like I said, you know, I've told this to you privately. You know, I'm proud of you. You're my boy. Love you to death. And fresh focus. Let's go.
Let's go, man. Big things in 2020.
Yeah.
Peace, bro. Thank you for being the first one.
All right, later.
All right, thank you.